Welcome to the Swingset. Climb on up, there is always a swing available. On Life on the Swingset, the podcast, we explore ethically non-monogamous relationships, the pleasures and passions, the promise and pitfalls. We discuss all aspects of ethical non-monogamy in a fun, open, and welcoming fashion, with a gleam in our eye, a bounce in our step, our hands down your pants. Ooh, sorry, got ahead of myself. We may be biased. In fact, we most certainly are. But we don't sugarcoat, and each of us speaks honestly and earnestly about our thoughts, ideas, and experiences throughout our very own lives on the swing set. Thanks for swinging by.
Hi there, Swingset fans. While we try to tweet while we talk, we find we're a little distracted by, talking. But since you aren't, you can tweet along with us while you listen at hashtag #SSPodcast. That's hashtag #SSPODCAST. You'll be helping us help you categorize all the wacky, out-of-context things that we say while we podcast. Thanks.
Why are people into that is a question that people around the world ask of many things, often about various sexual kinks, fetishes, and practices. Podcast host Tina Horn asks on a regular basis, as her show deconstructs with a guest why people might be into a certain thing. We decided to turn that question around for our discussion with her and ask why we push our sexual boundaries and why doing so is important. That's tonight on Life on the Swingset, the podcast. As always, we'd love it if you tweeted along with our episode using the hashtag #SSPodcast. I'm Cooper, and with me I have...
Hey everybody, it's Ginger.
Hey everyone, it's Dylan.
And welcome Tina.
Hi, nice to be here. What a great intro.
Well, thank you. I wrote it myself.
I can tell.
Sometimes Ginger and Dylan write them for me, and they either perplex me or I don't read them ahead, and Ginger has slipped rhyme into them. And then I cannot get past rhyming stuff in an intro.
You cannot tell a rhyme.
Can't do it. Cannot tell a rhyme. I can rock a rhyme, though.
You guys should do themed verse for different episodes. Like you can do one episode in iambic pentameter.
Oh, yeah, and a sonnet.
We have done dramatic readings of sexy tweets.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it got sad, though. We
did get sad.
We did the Anthony Weiner scandal because those tweets were a lot of fun. But then some other scandals came out, and they were kind of sad.
They were desperate.
Yeah, and we felt uncomfortable doing them, I think.
We did.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, people don't think when they tweet, do they? That's like the whole point, right?
Yeah. Well, it's only 140 characters, so they all get out of you before your brain catches on to what you're doing.
Is that like some sort of algorithm? Some sort of scientific formula?
They specifically judged it for the maximum stupid, you could say.
Seems that way sometimes.
And then they confused it by adding hashtags.
Mm-hmm. And now you can DM as many characters as you care to.
Oh, yes. When I was sending a DM earlier, I use Hootsuite, and it tells you how many characters you've used. And now in DMs, it gives you 10,000 characters to count down. I feel like I should start sending 10,000 character direct messages.
I think that I think that's what email is for.
Certainly.
Or conversation, it's like in the time that it would take you to write that much in an instant in a private message on Twitter, you might as well just like get on a plane and like go hang out with that person,
Hey, no, we're millennials. We can't do that, face-to-face stuff. That's just not okay.
Have you guys heard about Generation Z? That's like the new generation.
Are they really lazy and into their phones?
No. Well, the New York Times did like a trend piece on Generation Z, which I can't remember. I mean, they're whatever comes after millennials. So I guess it's like if you've been born since the year 2000. So they're like teenagers now.
Now, are the millennials Y? Because they used to be Gen Y.
I think Gen Y is this like sliver of, because it's all marketing demographics, right? So it's not actually about like culture. It's about
it's not a real thing.
How do you predict how to sell shit to people?
So what defines Generation Z? I'm curious.
They are because, well, first of all, they're like natives of the internet, right? So they can't remember a time before social media, and they like all get iPhones when they're teenagers, and they all have seen what has happened to millennials, the mistakes that millennials have made and the hardships that millennials have had to go through because of the recession. And so they're actually they're like pragmatists. They're like these little, like, social media savvy pragmatists.
Huh. I would not have seen that coming.
No. Well, something new under the sun to sell shit to. They're like the kids of Generation X. So they're also like, our parents were too cynical.
all that Nirvana. Really all that flannel. It gets up into their brains, the flannel. So let's talk about why people are into things and why you should push your boundaries beyond what you think you should be into. Because that's really what I thought about when we were talking about what would we talk about with you. And it's like, well, you're always talking about why people are into that. So why not we talk about why it's important to try to be into things?
Yeah. Or is it?
I think it is. I mean, if we disagree, that might make for a better show. I don't know. I realized that one of the things that non-monogamy seems to do is the fact that you're looking at a new version of the relationship structure means you're already sort of exploring at the fringes of mainstream society.
And probably your own comfort zone and your own sense of identity and your own sense of identity within a relationship as well.
Yeah. And it makes me wonder if people who are non-monogamous are more willing to explore the wide breadth of things available to them. Or if people who are willing to explore are the ones who tend to be more non-monogamous.
Well, it's interesting because there are people who are just into one thing and they're really into that, and that's their whole sexual adventurous identity, is exploring or embracing, if they do choose to or give themselves the opportunity to explore it. And you might think like, well, if you're into this kinky thing, like you should try this other kinky thing, and they might just be like, no, this is my thing. And then there are people who are, trisexuals, right? That like will try anything twice. And I'm happy to say that I certainly fall into that category, and I'm like that in every part of my sexual identity and gender identity. Like, I'm definitely a switch. I'm queer in the sense that I'm interested in and attracted to people of all genders, romantically and sexually, and I'm a sadist and a masochist and a top and a bottom and a dominant and a submissive, and sometimes we'll turn on a dime in a second. So sometimes it's hard for me to relate to somebody who is only into, like, somebody who is like, I'm just a masochist and I'm not a sadist, or vice versa, or somebody who's like, I actually really only like girls, and I can't imagine what that's like. But I have tried to retrain myself to not think of myself as liberated and those people as repressed, because the truth of the matter is that what I really want is for people to give themselves the freedom to explore what they're into. And I would hope that people would experience something or experiment with something in, just so they can know for sure. But do you see what I'm saying?
Like, oh, yeah. When I spent a huge chunk of my adult life very much in the mold. And when you're in the mold, every feeling of wanting to explore things that are outside are often met with either fear or shame. I'm afraid of what people will think, or I'm ashamed of what people will think, or I'm ashamed of what I would be doing. And I think that holds people back so much on exploration of almost anything.
Yeah, it definitely does. And that's so pandemic in, on the planet in general, definitely in America, definitely in Western society, that people don't explore things because of repression, because of shame, because of the way that they've been socialized, because of fear. But I do think that it's important to recognize and give allow the agency of people who aren't exploring.
Oh, yeah.
Something, not because they're repressed, but because that's actually just, not their cup of tea.
Well, I have a healthy appreciation for people that kind of take one thing, grasp onto it, focus on it, and really become passionate about it, and really follow that down the rabbit hole to the point where they really just want to be surrounded by that and nothing else.
Yeah.
What gets me is it still usually requires some exploration and experimentation to get to that point. So I think of all the people that I know that probably haven't even found that one thing, but that are doing what they're doing now because they don't know any better. And so, I have plenty of friends in everyday life and in the sexy world that I constantly want to find a way to introduce them to things, just because knowing that something exists is almost always enough. Oh my God, I didn't realize that you could do that to somebody. And then just exposing them to it bit by bit and bit. And people have visceral reactions to stuff, and it's not a problem. But sometimes there's just, all of a sudden you see that glint in their eye, and it's like, would you like to know more? And then you show them a little more, and then they follow it down. And as a trisexual, and I haven't used that word in years, but I love that you said it because I need to identify as that more. But one of the things I love about being open to anything, at least a couple times, is that when I see somebody truly passionate about something, I can kind of switch my attention and delve into that world. And while I never may get as deep as they are into it, I'll get a glint of what they really love about it, and I'll really enjoy both them enjoying it, and I'll get some enjoyment out of it myself.
Right. Yeah, I definitely want to try everything sexually, also because of a curiosity that might not have to do with my arousal or my desire or identity per se. It may just be more of my reporter cap and wanting to understand it. Yeah, I really like what you were saying, so that you can understand somebody else who's into it a little bit better.
Well, that to me sounds like a more anthropological approach to it, where if it's less, and I don't want to say less personal, meaning the relationships aren't there, but if it's less about your desire, your arousal, your identity, then you're doing it for the experience to reflect on it and just see what that's all about. I feel like there you go. Your Indiana Jones hat. I feel like a lot of folks are not capable of getting to that place quite yet because they're still in the throes of even tiny bits of exposure to new things that are still impacting them so personally and so intensely in their core that processing is kind of all they can do. So I feel like, and this is just, my personal opinion, but that idea of being able to go to an anthropological place requires that you've done a lot of your own exploration already and maybe put to bed, no pun intended, maybe a little, your own questions, concerns, you know where you land sexually in the world, in interactions, so you free up a little more energy to have that anthropological approach.
Yeah, but sometimes, I totally hear what you're saying, but sometimes you try something, like, let's give an example, like bondage, basic gateway drug to to kinky excitement.
Bondage is the gateway drug to kinky.
I think specifically fuzzy handcuffs, right? Is that the cliche?
It is definitely what you can buy at Victoria's Secret. But you try it, not like going into it like an anthropologist, not going into it like a reporter or an Indiana Jones, but you don't know whether it's going to turn you on or not until you get there, right? Yeah, and also there are like a million different kinds of bondage, and also some people suck at bondage. I'm actually one of them. So and I try. I'm actually, I mean, I like being tied up, but I'm just like no good at crafts. So
you know what I like to do? I like to hand my wife over to people that are really good at it.
You say you do you.
Well, I mean, that brings up a really great point, which is that there are also like an infinite number of ways to do something. So, you may, and desire changes is the other thing that I wanted to say to your point, that like, who knows, I might, like wake up one day and be like, oh, I get it now. Like, I get, like, what would be hot about this for me. I obviously get what's hot about bondage for other people, but, like, oh, all of a sudden this is giving me a boner and never gave me a boner before, and, I want to keep trying things because you never know.
And that is really the core of why I tell everybody that they should try every aspect of things that generally won't, cause them life-threatening injuries. I'm not advocating try everything, but if I had not said yes to being asked, can I tie you to this cross and beat you on my first night in San Francisco way back, I would not have understood the BDSM experience. And that gave me a whole new appreciation of how to approach being both a top and a bottom from that one experience. And it comes down to, we're often so afraid to say yes when people ask us to try things. And that may go back to us defying our parents when they want us to try Brussels sprouts.
I love Brussels sprouts.
Me too, actually. But while we may not like even a huge chunk of it, are we willing to risk not trying things we will like, just for the sake of getting over that discomfort of the things we may try and be like, oh no, that's not for me?
I mean, we're all sex geeks, right? So like we're all
not the general population sample.
Well, I mean, I think that we're all people who are inclined to, have that, to satisfy that urge to explore and experiment and think about things in lots of different ways and obsess about sexuality. And I'm trying to think of the things that people will say to me that I should really try, that they're like, it's so great, so many people like it, and I'm just like, no, like, I'm not really into, like, adrenaline rush, experiences, like, roller coasters, skydiving, bungee jumping, like, that kind of thing. Like, I would much prefer an adrenaline rush from, like, being mind-fucked by, like, somebody who's, like, standing there, like, role-playing with, like, a police baton, while I'm, like, tied up in suspension or whatever, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm interested in, like, psychological adrenaline rushes and, like, the euphoria of sadomasochism and, like, various, lots of different things, but, like, people could say to me until they're blue in the face, you gotta try it, it's so great, it's so fun, it's so exhilarating, it's all of these things, it's gonna liberate you, and I just know that I'm probably never going to do that. And I feel okay with that because I don't feel like I'm repressing anything by being no fun at an amusement park. You know, I'm like, seriously, I will like sit on a bench and read a book and be much more excited than going on a roller coaster.
Well, that speaks to that a couple of things. You know, one is knowing that you're open enough that you can pick and choose what you want to be open about, that you don't necessarily have to try everything on the buffet, that, either maybe you don't like something, or you're not interested in trying it to see whether you like it or not, because maybe your plate is already plenty full. And the other piece is the interpersonal aspect. In my mind, I think about, the way we're talking about this from a very individual place. I'm assuming all of us have ample opportunity to try these things with partners who can really push our buttons. There are some folks who are coming from that place where they're wanting to explore, and their opportunity to explore right now is with their one partner.
Or with themselves.
Or just with themselves, but not, like you said, engaging with other partners or even in other venues. So that really changes the considerations a bit. I mean, obviously, if you're exploring all by yourself, whether it's reading different kinds of erotica or whatever, there's that. But if you are bringing these fantasies or this erotica or this porn that you watched up to a partner that you aren't, full frontal with quite yet with your fantasies, then there's a lot of risk involved there, emotional risk for folks.
Sure. Well, not only that you are bringing your fantasies, but that you may be bringing an idea that you just want to peek at this. It's like, this is something that I'm just vaguely curious about. And if it's something scary, we can be afraid that little vague curiosity will be the catalyst for a big confrontation, blow up. Like, how could you be into that? It's like, you don't even know if you're into that.
Well, and the other thing that is hard for people to hear when their partner says, I want to try this, is I think for a lot of people that sends them right to the insecurity that I'm not interesting enough for you, I'm not arousing enough for you anymore. You like have this secret fantasy life that you've been keeping from me, and that's the thing that I would love to see us working on as a culture, is people not feeling like their partner's desire to experiment is a reflection of dissatisfaction any more than saying, let's go out to eat tonight is a reflection of I hate your cooking, or your cooking your cooking bores me. Variety is the spice of life.
Well, if there was a template, if I had a note card in my pocket with a list of things to say to people when I first meet them and they're interested in possibly exploring really anything, and they have a partner, it'd be that you need to accept that the chances of you being the one human being that is absolutely perfect and capable of supplying everything your partner needs all the time are very slim, or pretty much impossible. You're not always going to be able to provide everything your partner wants or needs, and they're not always going to provide everything you need or want, and that's okay. You don't need to be everything for them. They don't need to be everything for you, and that means you're going to have interests that don't necessarily, they don't walk away from each other, but that they run in parallel. You two can like things. One of you can like that the other person likes something without that being a terrible thing, and we learn compersion. We learn to like what our partner likes because they like it. And it doesn't have to be, using a vibrator doesn't have to mean that the man's inadequate, at the very basic level. So,
and in fairness, it doesn't mean that.
No, absolutely not. It's, and so you kind of take that and you extend it out logically, and you think, well, they just like this. And the fact that I don't want to give that to them is totally okay, and that makes it okay for them to go and explore. And so as a template for non-monogamy, that's a really good place to start. And so I've been lucky enough to help a lot of friends that just have regular monogamous heteronormative partners and help them through things just because they can learn to accept that they can't be everything to each other. And yeah, I'd like to see a lot more people, a lot more therapists, a lot more culture just focused on doing that instead of dealing with the love story, and instead of putting out the love story that, you know, you have to be somebody's soulmate, you have to be perfect for them.
I mean, people are threatened by the fact that their partners look at porn that doesn't, you know, like if they like a porn star that doesn't look like their partner, and or that they like to watch something that maybe they don't actually like have any interest in, like being in a bondage gangbang, you know, like, but it's exciting to watch that fantasy, like, you know, for the same reason you watch a football game, frankly. I mean, it's similar kind of endurance and possibility of head injury, you know.
Yeah, no, not everybody can play football, but it's fun to watch. Yeah.
But yeah, it makes, I mean, hearing those stories makes me really sad, you know, because I just think that having a rich fantasy life is so important, and I'm just firmly, I mean, it's no surprise to anyone who knows my work that I'm pro pornography, but I just really think that I think that porn can be such a healthy vibrator for your mind, and such a healthy outlet for, you know, I mean, it's a story. It may be a very simple story, mostly told in movement and gestures, but just, you know, so is modern dance. I'm just comparing porn to every other activity under the sun, I guess.
No, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
In sheer variety, anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a commercial break. When we get back, we're going to be talking more about pushing our boundaries on Life on the Swingset, the podcast.
The Swingset, the podcast.
Hey all, Cooper here to tell you the exciting news that my best-selling book, My Life on the Swingset, Adventures in Swinging and Polyamory, is now available on Audible. As you may know, if you sign up for Audible now, you can get your first month and first audiobook free. So why not make it mine? Go to audible.mylotss.com and get 8 hours of newly produced audio content now. If you crave other methods of book consumption, you can purchase the DRM-free ebook or paperback, as well as the audiobook direct from me at mylifeontheswingset.com. You know you'd rather hear than read about my epic prostate orgasm. Why not do it now? When it comes to online dating, we here at the Swingset believe that Cassidy is the best one out there. It looks great, it's intuitive and easy to use, and it's simply full of potential sexy friends. Still the fastest growing online swinger dating site in the world, Cassidy has been our go-to site for the last 3 years. If you sign up using our link at lifeontheswingset.com/KASIDIE, you'll get some free time to explore the site. And you can decide for yourself if Cassidy is the site for you. Hope to see you there at Cassidy.com. It's so anticlimactic when it's the only thing.
I think it stands alone.
Like the cheese.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I don't know why that struck me as so funny all of a sudden, but that was like, oh my gosh, the cheese does stand alone.
Mm-hmm.
We at the Swingset believe that being risk-aware and practicing safer sex makes our lifestyle exponentially better. With that in mind, we're partnering with Lucky Bloke, global condom experts and the best online source for condoms and lube, to say no to mediocre condoms and bring the most pleasurable, safer sex directly to our listeners. Go to swingsetcondoms.com to see a specially curated selection of condoms, lubes, and assortments to reintroduce variety and excitement into the protection portion of your playtime. You should especially take note of the deluxe sampler put together by us at the Swingset for your party and date night kit. Making your condom purchase here supports both us at the Swingset and the wonderful purveyors of safer sex, the Lucky Bloke. SwingsetCondoms.com.
It's Prof. I'm here with Ginger, and we have some big news to share, Ginger.
We do. We're going to Desire. Again.
Yes, we are. April 2016. From the 16th through the 21st, we are going to do a 5-day bit of awesomeness.
Absolutely. It's a hold me over. If you can't make it in November, we'd love to host you in April with JV and Shara from Ending the Sexual Dark Age.
And we're going to have a chill time. Not quite as many activities as our normal November trip, but still lots of awesome Desire fun for sure. So, Ginger, how do people get on this awesome trip with us?
They should definitely email me at ginger@lifeontheswingset.com and we'll get you in touch with Jim from Shar Travel. We'd love to see you there. Join us.
Yay! Do it.
Welcome back to Life on the Swingset, the podcast. I've kind of had this thought. If you've kind of been sitting down wondering, hey, I like this thing and I want to try this thing, but you're in a relationship with somebody that you're kind of afraid of exploring, a thing with somebody, how do you get to the point where, how do you bring them along for the ride?
Well, let's come up with an example. Let's come up with a scenario. So
Yes, Dylan, role play.
Okay, so I'm a dude and I got a girl.
Good start.
And I heard, in fact, I saw in some porn that a girl putting a finger in my butt was apparently potentially a thing that might feel good. And I'd like to explore that, but I think my partner would think it's icky and or might think I'm, let's say, gay. But I'd like to mention it to them in a way that makes them comfortable and makes me comfortable and might potentially bring them along for the ride.
Okay, so here's the first thing that I'm going to say. And by the way, all of those things that you just mentioned are so common misconceptions to this day, I think, about anal sex, particularly male receptive anal sex. And I would say that before, if you're curious about anal sex and you've seen it in some porn and you don't know anything else about it, but you want to bring it up with your partner because you want that finger in your ass during a blowjob or whatever, but you're worried about their judgment, first I might ask myself, are you projecting? Not to be too clinical, but like all of these fears that you have about what your partner is going to say, like, do you really think that your partner, do you really believe that your partner will say those things, or are you worried that those things are true? But I would definitely say, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, but I would say start solo before you talk to your partner about it. Not because you should feel scared or ashamed to bring it up with your partner, but because it's really great to go to your partner and say, I know this feels good. I know this turns me on. I know that I enjoy doing this, and you turn me on, and I want to incorporate you into this thing that I really like. That can be one strategy, because also sometimes with anal sex being a very good example, people are curious about it, and then they ask their partner to do it, and their partner's like, maybe not like outright homophobic or judgmental, but they don't know how it's done. They don't understand lube.
They may also just default to the ew track. Ew.
Right. They might default to the ew, or they might just not know how to do it, and so then they go for it. They kind of like scrunch up their face and stick out their finger, and they're like, duh. And then it's like actually like not erotic. It might be painful. It might be messy. And any number of things. And then you're both like, whoa, no, I don't know why anybody does this. This is bad. And then nobody gets to enjoy it. And then the negative things are reinforced by that situation. So I would say that, like, solo play to start off, and this would definitely go for any sexual interest or any fetish, that exploring it. Also, and then I'll turn it over to everybody else, read a fucking book. That's my answer to everything. # read a book.
Read the manual. See, there should be manuals. Why are we not writing manuals?
We are writing manuals, Cooper.
like literal manuals, like user guide.
Didn't you write a manual about
your
this
prostate and you?
Well, the nice thing about that particular one is that we do have people like Charlie Glickman that have written.
We do have amazing.
Yeah, Tristan Taormino. I mean, come on.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a wealth of information out there that's even Google searchable. I mean, seriously, if you look up that stuff, it's there and right up front, and it's increasing. We were talking about millennials and the Generation Z generation and stuff, and that they're not just savvy about social media, they're savvy about Google searches, and so their ability to access information like this is going to be incredible relative to what, let's say, we or the Generation Xers had to deal with. So doing a little research is going to be pretty valuable no matter what people might end up being interested in.
Yeah, and I do think that they're savvy enough actually to know the difference between misinformation and good resources, right? Because the good resources are going to have better web design. So they're going to be like, oh, this must be the right answer.
I had this visual of when you were talking about guides, I had this visual of like when you go to the doctor's office and they have the stuff with it's like spiral bound and it's like flips up.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like it's sitting there and it's like got these flip up pages so you could actually sit it on your bedside stand. And as you needed, it's like all tabbed out. And as you need the next step, you just flip it over and there it is. Or maybe it's your phone and you swipe it. I don't know. But certainly.
Yeah, Jen, you got to appeal to the Generation Z.
Exactly. I'm appealing to, all the way around. The other piece of that I love, I mean, certainly I love, Tina, I love your advice. Get a book. We're so lucky to have all of these talented teachers that tell us these awesome things in a way that we want to hear them, like Tristan and Charlie, and that's awesome. Additionally, what I love is this idea that, we've got a lot of folks out there in the world telling their own stories. We've got a lot of sex bloggers out there and a lot of podcasters and a lot of folks that, although the factual information may not be all there, certainly hand in hand, getting your factual information from great sources, and then also listening to people's emotional, subjective experiences of how it felt when they had a finger in their ass during a blowjob, that it opens our minds a little bit to, hey, I'm not the only one who wants this, and I'm not the only one who has enjoyed this so far. And it's a really great opportunity, particularly for partners, to come together to utilize that as a communication tool to say, not only I'm into this because I've explored, which I think is a great way to do it. I've explored, during my solo sex. So when we do this together, it really will turn me on, but also to bring some other, anecdotal research that says, hey, and there's other people who've done this together and this is how they did it. So maybe we can try it their way with this book on the side.
Yeah, stories are an incredibly powerful way to connect with ideas.
And I want to go back to something we were talking about, though, that, you could bring something like this to a partner and they could react badly. And we need to recognize that part of our process is often that initial bad reaction on our own. When we feel interest in something that we didn't expect and immediately start judging ourselves for it. And so if we take that and apply it globally, we felt bad about it. We felt weird about it. We reacted negatively, but then we thought about it and processed it and got over it and now can get on to the part of trying and seeing if we like it. So when we bring these things to a partner, we need to be very forgiving of them possibly having the same reaction to it that we did. Because if you bring, anal sex is kind of very mainstream now. So that's less of a thing than it used to be. You bring, let's go ahead and say needle play, because it's one thing that terrifies me. And I'm not going to judge anybody who's into it, but I'm terrified by it. But if you bring that to a partner and they are also terrified by it, and they react really viscerally, it's very tempting then to, on your side, shut down, feel the shame, feel the fear, feel like you were wrong, you never should have done this, when in reality we should never apologize for our initial reactions, because initial reactions are gut reactions and brain before we've really thought reactions. And those reactions are often bad. It's how we process through that initial reaction that really defines our openness as people.
When you were talking about needle play, which is something as a top and a bottom that I really enjoy, this snarky comment bubbled into my brain, as snarky comments are known to do. When you were talking about being scared of it, which is something along the lines of yeah, that's the fucking point, you have to harness it, but the truth of the matter is that you actually, I think it's a skill to develop, and this is sort of like a meta communication, meta sexual, meta kink skill, is to know how to harness that fear. And also, going back to talking about anal sex, I can say for myself that the taboo of anal sex, and I know this is true for many people in many ways, the taboo of anal sex is part of what makes it hot, right? Mm-hmm. So we don't necessarily want to completely, or it's not really actually, I think, realistic to ask people to be free of fear, free of shame, free of the way that they've been socialized by the patriarchy or whatever, but to figure out actually how to transform those things into arousal, and how to sort of feel the catharsis of, this is one of the things that I think that kink and sex are so amazing for, is that if you harness it right, then you can kind of have this catharsis from being held captive by that fear.
Well, it's a reclamation of your agency in the situation.
Absolutely. And it's just hot.
Yeah, that too.
I really feel like exhibitionists are God's gift to to people that want to try something new, because I love to show off when I'm playing with somebody, especially when they like being put on display. And so doing all sorts of what to other people might seem to be crazy shit is great feeling for me, but it also provides a valuable public service. And finding spaces where you can kind of do that is kind of wonderful. So I know that, as the stereotypical, I'm a dude and I have a partner that likes things. There are also kind of spaces that you can kind of try out in a very light way to get people interested in something new.
And voyeurism is participation. You might find that what you really want to do with your partner, or what your boundaries are that you're both comfortable with, is just to enjoy going and watching other people do things. And that might not necessarily mean, well, then you have to graduate to doing it, and then you have to get all the gear, and then you have to, be at 500 level. It's you might just actually enjoy, just being at a sexy party, that it in and of itself might be boundary pushing for you in a very exciting way.
And that might also be a source of that fear and nervousness is, well, if I dip my toe in, am I suddenly going to fall in? When there are, you can probably, with most things, stop at any level you'd like. You don't have to get your master's degree and your doctorate. You could stop. Sometimes all you need is an associate's in anal.
Absolutely.
I mean, one of the reasons that I harp on this all the time and pushing your boundaries is some of the most important things I discovered about myself were from pushing these boundaries that were frightening initially. And the bisexuality one is the biggest of them all, because that was something that caused me tremendous shame and self-doubt, wondering if I was wrong about my sexuality. And instead of discovering that I was wrong about it, I discovered that my sexuality was far more complex and varied than I initially thought. And none of that would have been possible without the actual exploration, because there are things that you can explore in theory, but some things you actually have to explore in practice before you know if you like it or not. It's like when we talk about starting swinging, you're not going to ever know how you will feel when you watch your wife sucking another cock, no matter how much you role play it, until the moment you see it. And that is true of a lot of things in sexuality. You're not going to know how you'll feel about it until you actually try. And so what I really like to push is don't regret trying, even if you hate it. It's okay to try and dislike something. In fact, you're probably going to try and dislike a lot of things. But the more things you try...
That was the one. I did that once.
Which,
well, there's this fear of failure that's out there. I mean, just defining it as failure is kind of, it's not helpful to say, oh man, I failed liking this or I failed enjoying this. Because then you're actually setting yourself up for what is a failure. And you want to avoid failure, right? But just taking the time to try something and then ending up being like, oh, well, I guess not, I'm not into that, or that didn't go well. And then you move on kind of to the next thing is kind of a nice way to move through life, I think, when you're exploring.
An experience that I use as an anecdote sometimes that's coming to mind, which might not seem the most obvious, is when I was in my early 20s and I was living with my boyfriend, and I was really pushing to be more sexually adventurous. And one of the things that I really wanted to do was for us to watch porn together, because I was very curious about porn and I was very excited about the idea of watching porn with him. And we were watching it and I made some comments, some like little, baby feminist, reductive comment about how all of the female performers in the porn had shaved bald pussies, right? And I, definitely did not shave any part of my body except my head, and a California girl, and I made this very judgmental comment about oh God, it's so gross that all the, I like this porn, but I wish that they weren't all shaved. Blah, that's so anti-feminist something, blah, blah, blah. And my boyfriend got really quiet, and then anyway, long story short, he eventually got up the courage to say to me, I actually think it's really hot when you can see the whole pussy. And I realized in that moment that I was being judgmental when all I did all day was try to convince him to be less repressed and explore things with me. And I was, making him feel ashamed for something that he liked. And, and then he got up the nerve to ask me, to say that he totally had fantasies about shaving me. And so I decided that I needed to reward him, and let him shave me, sort of as penance for being so judgmental. And it turned out I really liked it. I really liked being shaved by him. It was extremely erotic. And I also really liked having a shaved pussy, and I shave my pussy to this day. And it opened my mind, but the thing that I had to do in order to get there was like kind of like be an asshole and be like called out for it.
I know exactly what you mean there. I've had very similar situations, and sometimes it's where you're saying something that you think the partner is feeling. And
yeah, I totally assumed that he felt the same way.
Yeah, and you can push someone who's on the cusp of curiosity. You can push them right off. So they are not going to even come close to it because that little door that opened a crack is now slammed shut, and it was slammed shut accidentally.
Well, I'm just glad that he like had the nerve to say something, because it also would have been really sad if I had just completely, traumatized and shut him down completely, and then he like never would get the nerve to like ask his feminist girlfriends of the future to do this thing that he liked, So
it's interesting to hear your stories, and for me, I feel like my explorations have been, I don't know how to describe this, but hang with me for a second. So my explorations in terms of different kinds of fun, sexy things to try, I'm very much like, so excited, happy to give it a try. If I find something new I like, I'm like, oh yay, something new I like. And if there's something I don't go into the failure paradigm where it's like, oh, I tried something and wasted a night or wasted this experience or wasted whatever. It's just like, okay, well, good information to have. I feel like my boundary pushing that has really challenged me is with my experiences, and Tina, you mentioned this earlier and it really resonated with me, that my experiences with fear and my experiences with pain, and being able to push those edges with partners that I implicitly, completely trust. And so I don't want to say it's a known quantity, because it's not. I mean, there's when it comes to prof, there's mind fucking, there's, pain, there's experiences with bondage and surprise scenarios and all of these scenarios that it's less about what is happening in terms of an exploration or an implement or a way that I'm being bound, but it's much more about, as you were talking about, the psychological edge of the fear, also the physiological edge of the pain, and really challenging myself in that. And if I can reflect on experiences I've had that have really been not just boundary pushing experiences for my sexual life, but boundary experiencing pushes for my entire life, I reflect on those sexual erotic experiences where I'm pushing those boundaries, and it informs me for what I'm doing even in my day to day. That, gosh, I've been through these really intense ordeals by full consent and choice, and loved every second of it in its own way. And then it's like, I can reflect on that and think, wow, I was so challenged in the moment that what I learned about myself during that time is something I have all the time. I can access that all the time, not just when I'm in bondage, or not just when I'm receiving pain, or not just when prof is mind fucking me. I feel like I have those resources with me all the time now. And that expansiveness of those experiences is something that I think there are other places I might be able to access some of that. We're talking about the jumping out of planes and whatnot, but I feel like there's something intensely integrated and intimate with those kinds of erotic explorations and what you can carry with you in all of the other aspects of your life. So I just wanted to reflect back on that psychological component being paramount for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that everybody should try everything.
Yeah.
But, I also think everybody should read every book and hear every record and go to every country and, do everything. But, I have to accept that maybe some people just want to, stay home and watch TV. That's cool. Just, don't fucking tell me what to do with my life, I guess, is, the thing that matters the most to me.
People should experience the full Ponderosa buffet of life. Or is that too obscure? How about Sizzler? Sizzler buffet?
Ugh, no. I like having the choice to go out and do all sorts of crazy stuff, and then be able to, catch a Netflix marathon with somebody on occasion. Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. Although now we can combine both, because for people that haven't seen a lot, if we happen to put on Sense8, we can both get our Netflix in and get a little bit of eyebrow-raising action.
The most variety of sexual expression and gender expression I have ever seen on television.
Sense8?
Sense8.
Cool.
Highly recommend.
I haven't seen it yet.
The nice thing about it, and I'm not going to harp on it too much, but the first episode will pretty much help you decide whether you want to bother with the second.
Yeah.
So you don't need to put in 5 or 6 hours to figure
And midway
it out.
through, there's an orgy,
Yeah. Somebody sent me a supercut of the sex scenes, and I was like, what am I watching?
Yeah. Intense, erotic, and awesomely varying.
Everyone was really hot. That's what I liked about it.
So really what we would love to encourage everyone in our listening audience to do is go out and try one new thing.
Yeah.
Do that this week. That's your assignment from the swing set. We usually don't give homework. You've been coasting this long. So now your job is do one thing new. And if you write us an email with a new thing you tried, I'll give you a copy of my book.
Nice.
Not a physical copy, because that's expensive, but I'll give you an audiobook or an ebook.
Nice.
Yeah. Dylan, how would you like to read some feedback we got?
I would love to read some feedback. So I'm going to go ahead and do that.
And it won't be a long political discussion after it, unlike before.
No, well, remember, Cooper...
I make no promises.
Yeah, and just so you know, Tina, I've been putting epic battle music before every time we mention politics. So, listeners, you haven't heard it, therefore you're not going to hear it. So.
Yeah, but now they're going to be gun shy, thinking, what if he wants to spring it on us sometime?
No, I wouldn't do that. I have a social contract with our listeners. I may surprise you, but I won't surprise you.
Okay.
So,
well, this is actual feedback, not. I'm going to stop talking, Dylan. Go.
Yeah, shut the fuck up, Cooper. I just wanted to have some feedback on episode 213, where you discussed how to handle a sex partner who has the wrong moves during sex. I want to offer another perspective. Sex isn't a dance. Sex covers the range of thousands of dances: samba, swing dance, crumping, ballet, or just swaying in the wind, waving your lighter in the air. Just because your partner doesn't move like you does not mean they have the wrong moves. It just means that they enjoy different moves. Some people are thrilled by a hard fucking with no foreplay, even on the receiving end. Others find that boring as hell and prefer to lick all over and touch every part of the body. None are wrong and none are right. I find sex flows so much smoother if you think of it as a conversation rather than as a dance. It doesn't have to be verbal, although it can be, especially in the lead up. But the point is that it's an exchange. You can listen for what your partner likes and express what you like. If you don't express what you like, don't blame your partner if they improvise what they like. I find that the dance metaphor is all over the place, in media and in conversations. I find it extremely frustrating. I truly believe that the only people who can truly be called bad at sex are the people who intentionally ignore their partner's pleasure. People who are bad at conversation don't listen and don't seem to care. They're bad at sex. I like the way you put that, listener.
I especially like the moment where crumping and ballet were right next to each other in a comma list. That was the best part ever.
Yeah, treating sex like a conversation. Yeah, I like that. I feel like I talk a lot about nonverbal communication during first time encounter. We're swingers, and we're usually put in fairly high pressure situations, like clubs or cruises or whatever it is, where you really only have a few minutes to make a good first impression, and you're constantly both sending out signals and picking up signals. And we've gotten used to like the speed dating version of picking up nonverbal signals and flirting and all sorts of stuff. So we're trained. We're battle hardened. We're ready for it. And finding a partner that's really bad at that sexual conversation is kind of a shock sometimes. But I should say not practiced. But no, you're right. Bad is really the people who intentionally ignore their partner's pleasure. I don't find a lot of people that intentionally ignore pleasure these days, or intentionally ignore preferences these days. And when I find people that are ignoring it because they're not picking it up, I'm generally willing to kind of hold their hand through it. Because you know what? If somebody wants to be with me, they're showing willingness, initiative, whatever you want to call it. But they're there, and they're probably going to be willing to take a little bit of direction because they want to be with me, not my preferences.
And we really appreciate feedback, as always.
Yeah.
So before we wrap up, Tina, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh my gosh, thanks for having me.
Tell our listeners where they can buy stuff to help you pursue your more expensive kinks, where they can find you online, and settle a bet as to how your Twitter handle is pronounced.
Oh, well, it's God, I don't really have expensive kinks. I'm very DIY when it comes to, I feel like my most expensive kink is like the mind fuck of fear of whether or not I'll be able to pay rent. So that's the thing that you can help me fund. Yeah. So my Twitter handle absolutely is flexible enough to be pronounced either Tina Horn's ass if you're nasty, or Tina Horn sass if you prefer the more academic, literary side of me. So yes, Tina Horn's ass. My website is tinahorn.net. That's tinahorn.net. And I also have another website, wirepeopleintothat.com, which is the home of my podcast, wirepeopleintothat.com, which Cooper described a little bit earlier.
Yes, you should listen to it.
Oh, thank you. My next episode, my guest is none other than Cooper Beckett, talking about why are people into swinging.
Hey, and that's not the only reason I'm recommending it. I actually didn't know when that one was airing, so score.
Yeah, and that podcast, you can download it on iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you like to listen to podcasts, or you can stream it from wirepeopleintothat.com. And then, so I have a book out. It's out on 3L Media, which is a new press. Sorry not sorry about the sounds of New York that are giving so much texture to my...
It's the theater of the mind for our listeners. They can close their eyes and picture being there, maybe nipping out for a bagel somewhere.
Yeah, a bagel at 10 o'clock at night. Yeah. Totally city that never sleeps, not even the bagels. Let's see. So I have a book out. The book is called Love Not Given Lightly, Profiles from the Edge of Sex. And you can buy it wherever fine books are sold. But if you go to tinahorn.net, there are some links to places that you can buy it. I would love it if you bought it from an indie bookstore, your favorite local indie bookstore. That book is it's a nonfiction book about sex workers in the Bay Area. I'm really proud of it. And I have a book coming out in January called Sexting, and it's about sexting.
That's good synergy between your title and content.
Synergy. Yeah, it's on Quiver Press, and it is it's an etiquette guide. It's a dating etiquette guide, so it's a little bit more self-helpy than my first book, but very, very obscene, and hopefully has a lot of great advice about sexting and sending dirty selfies and online dating, and basically like sexuality and technology and how that's changing our communication. So that's out in January, and you can pre-order it now, and it would be so awesome if you did, because all the stuff that is good about pre-ordering. So if you're curious about my work, or you're curious about how to be better at sexting, you can pre-order that again by going to tinahorn.net. And what the hell else do I do with myself?
You try a lot of stuff.
Yes, I do. I try. But I just can't get no satisfaction.
Well done.
Thanks. Anytime.
So I just want you to know that you shouldn't feel shame about having the Sounds in New York backing your audio track here, because for the longest time, our own Shirabi cats introduced us to the sounds of San Francisco, which
really were just motorcycles going by at random times.
Yes, lots of motorcycles. Like, I've been in her house for an extended period of time. I don't know what about her area in particular attracted motorcycles, because it's not like there was a 2-mile stretch of almost track that people could just burn out on. But it was, for whatever reason, it was a destination. So for 160 episodes or so, our listeners enjoyed the sounds of San Francisco, and now we get a little bit of the sounds of New York. So that's A-okay. Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. So you can like us on Facebook at facebook.com/The Swingset. Follow us on Twitter at Cooper S. Beckett, at Ginger N. the Prof, at Dylan the Thomas, and at Tina Horn's ass. Yay!
Hey!
Check out this podcast, daily blogs, articles, and toy reviews on our website at lifeontheswingset.com and on our site's Twitter feed at OnTheSwingset. Email us at contact@lifeontheswingset.com. Give us a call, leave us a voicemail, send us a text, 573-55-SWING. That's 573-557-9464. I was serious about sending us stuff about things you tried. So how about try at lifeontheswingset.com or anything at lifeontheswingset.com.
I have to think of something I haven't done to try. Maybe I'll try Netflix and chill.
Yeah.
Well, you haven't tried Sense8 yet.
There you go.
There you go.
Perfect.
I'll let you guys know what I think of the
Awesome.
trans lady sex. I have a feeling I'm gonna like it. So
I
spoiler alert.
Yeah. So hey, swing setters, when you're buying condoms, buy them at swingsetcondoms.com, because it supports this podcast, and the condoms come from Lucky Bloke. They're not just in the trunk of Dylan's car and he throws some in a bag and mails them to you. So don't worry about that. Though I have a feeling if Dylan kept condoms in the trunk of his car, they would be nothing but the best.
That's actually true. The condoms that I have in the trunk of my car, which are in my travel bag, my just-in-case bag, are some of my favorites. And, yeah.
You can support us by buying a shirt or leaving us a tip or joining our Patreon at lifeontheswingset.com/support. And you can find other great podcasts like the Gentle Pervert Social Club, the Kinky Geeks, Eat the Rudecast, a damn good podcast about Twin Peaks, Sex at a Go-Go, and the Tell Me Something Good podcast at swingset.fm or on our free Android app. And if you just haven't had enough Twitter handles, at SwingsetFM. And finally, you can buy My Life on the Swingset Adventures in Swinging and Polyamory as an ebook, paperback, or audiobook at mylifeontheswingset.com.
Hey,
Thanks
Coop.
again, Tina. Yes.
Coop.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, y'all.
Oh,
Ginger interrupted the outro. That's so rare.
I was just gonna say we need to edit that because there's one more podcast.
Right. No, let me do it again. We don't need to edit it. I totally... Well, I mean, you did just blast out 3 podcasts in a row. It's just like you went from not existing to boom, just like the Big Bang.
There you go. Exactly.
So also...
Go ahead.
Yes?
Go ahead.
So also, please tune in to the brand new, yet already somehow like 4 episodes old podcast, Intellectual Foreplay, which is... Ginger, I want to talk to you about this, by the way.
Okay.
It is fascinating, the different version of Ginger Bentham you hear on Intellectual Foreplay versus on Swingset. And I think it has to do with a level of relaxation. Because you are so amazingly relaxed and calm.
Yes.
And yeah, it's amazing, and it's lovely to listen to.
Well, I'll tell you that varies by venue. Because the first few we recorded in bed, and then we recorded in the bath, but we're also in the car, on the boat, other places. So the vibe tends to match the venue. So it starts that way, but you'll also find, I think, that as things shift and change, my energy changes according to the venue.
Yeah, and see, Cooper, I can say that I liked Intellectual Foreplay before it was cool, because my podcast, the General Purpose Social Club, was lucky enough to have 2 Intellectual Foreplays on there. And Ginger in an inebriated state in the middle of a bar is definitely different than her laying in bed or being in a boat. I can tell you that much. But
there you go.
But in all seriousness, though, episode 2, which they titled Biggest Fan, is one of my favorite podcasts of the year. I have all sorts of friends that have antagonistic relationships with their partners. And even though they clearly love each other, they clearly need to figure out why they're antagonistic with each other. And episode 2 of Intellectual Foreplay is a great way to introduce people to a better path.
Aw, thanks, Dylan. Thanks. So thank you guys. And I did not mean to derail the outro. I was kind of going to swear that off, but I just was feeling, my accuracy meter was like not intact, because I was just like, no, there's one more podcast. But with all that said, Tina, I do want to thank you for being on the show with us. It was a really great conversation, and I really just love and respect the work that you do. So it's a real charge for me to have you on the show. So thank you for joining us.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Thanks for having me. It was fun. I did a podcast in the bath and I can't remember which episode it is of Why Are People Into That, but it's Why Are People Into Sluts with none other than Reed Mihalko.
Why are people into Reed Mihalko? There's so many reasons that we could say that. I mean, I'm sure just now somewhere Reed's cock twitched.
Well, I can tell you, I haven't listened to that episode, but I'm gonna have to put it on now. So why are people into sluts? All right.
Yeah, it's great, and we're like clearly in the bath, because I'm like, yeah. So what do you think about that, Reed? Yeah.
It's so awesome, because when we were in the bath, we actually had people tweeting at us that they were also in the bath. So they were like, oh my gosh, we're all in the bath together. Yeah.
I think I gotta go take a bath right now after this conversation.
And listeners, for your information, that's episode 21 of Why Are People Into That?
Oh, nice. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Research, fact-checking.
So now I'm going to say the last line of the outro. Thanks for swinging by.
Have a sexy business? Love the Swingset? Let's put these 2 great things together. The Swingset Network has advertising and sponsorship packages available for our websites and podcasts. Email advertising@lifeontheswingset.com for more information. Thanks.
This is Kendra Holliday of thebeautifulkind.com, and you're listening to a Swingset podcast at swingset.fm.